Okay, fantastic. Thank you. Welcome, Milpitas, to tonight's Milpitas City Council meeting, the first one we have for this month here in September of 2022. I do want to open up the meeting by expressing what's happening in our community and across the state, which is the rolling blackouts or power outages happening throughout our city and many parts of our nation, actually. So we know that there's some portions of our city that are dealing with a power outage tonight, and our city is doing all we can. Of course, PG&E is really the agency that's ultimately sort of in charge there, and so I know PG&E is doing all they can. I know we will do all we can as a city, as much as we can, which isn't much in terms of the electricity, but our city does have cooling centers. If folks are watching at this moment online, perhaps the library is a place if you need a cool place to sort of shelter. The library, I know, is open still at this time. Of course, we're here at City Hall, and folks are more than welcome to join us here this evening. If you want to make your way here, it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes to get here from any part of town. So with sort of those thoughts shared, we hope that everybody is safe out there, and hopefully the rest of the week gets better day by day, hour by hour, and we look forward to getting past this very hot time period. With that being said, we'll go to our city clerk, Suzanne, for the roll call.
Councilmember Chua? Here. Councilmember Dominguez?
Present.
Councilmember Fan?
Present.
Vice Mayor Montano? Here. Mayor Tran?
Here. Thank you very much, our city clerk, Suzanne. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, moving on here. Thanks, folks, for joining us here tonight in our council chambers. As you know, these meetings have agendas, and these agendas are provided to you in paper form here in the rear of the chamber. If you're joining us online, of course, the agenda for tonight's meeting is also on the city website. You can look that up and follow along. And next up here on our agenda is an invocation presented by Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you so much, Mayor. At this time, I'm just going to go ahead and yield the time. Other than I just want to ask if we could just have a moment of silence. I know that we have been wanting to do a memorial for those who have passed due to COVID and other circumstances here at Milpitas. Unfortunately, we have had more families that have experienced passing aways in the last couple of weeks. So I'm just going to go ahead and invite our audience and our council to just do a moment of silence for those who are hurting in our community and who are being challenged, and that we may get the wisdom and the sympathy to do what's right, morally correct at all times. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next up is presentations. I'm going to go down myself here for the proclamations because we have such a number of them. And then lastly, we'll do the presentation with the whole council with our special guest office of Assembly Member Alex Lee. 1 second. Thank you very much. And the assembly member, I've been told, is on his way en route and will be here momentarily. In the meantime, I do have, as mentioned, 5 proclamations. And so first up is Pain Awareness Month here in September. And it's great to be back. I know our city council took about 3 weeks in between the last regular city council meeting and this regular city council meeting. So it seemed like a long 3 weeks, but it's great to be back. So let's get back with the Pain Awareness Proclamation. September is Pain Awareness Month. Nearly 50 million adult Americans are affected by chronic pain, negatively impacting almost every aspect of a person's life. Chronic pain costs our nation, the U.S. economy, $560 to $630 billion per year in medical expenses, lost wages, lost productivity, and other indirect costs. To raise awareness about the experiences facing Americans living with chronic pain, I, Mayor Rich Tran, on behalf of the City Council, proclaim the month of September as Pain Awareness Month here in the city of Milpitas. All right. The next proclamation is National Suicide Prevention Week. This week will be marked from September the 4th to September the 10th. National Suicide Prevention Week, a time in which individuals, organizations, and communities around the country join their voices to amplify the message that suicide can be prevented. Everyone in the community is urged to play a role in suicide prevention and promote mental health and wellness. Therefore, I, Mayor Rich Tran, and on behalf of the City Council, proclaim the week of September 4th to the 10th as Suicide Prevention Week. Our next proclamation is National Preparedness Month. We are very proud to have a sort of Office of Emergency Management Preparedness, all the great words, here in the city of Milpitas. And we will get our director, Tony Sharp, to come up in 1 second. But, you just kind of look at what's going on right now all across town, which is power outages to so many homes. Preparedness is certainly something that we have to make a priority and always will. September is National Preparedness Month. This is a nationwide coordinated effort sponsored by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security each September to encourage Americans to prepare for emergencies in their homes, businesses, schools, and any place. This year's theme is a lasting legacy. The life you've built is worth protecting. Prepare for disasters to create a lasting legacy for you and your family. That's the theme. I'll repeat it again. A lasting legacy. The life you've built is worth protecting. Prepare for disasters to create a lasting legacy for you and your family. On behalf of the Milpitas City Council, I would like to recognize our Milpitas Office of Emergency Services and its community partners that routinely offer their invaluable services to our community. Director Sharp, do you want to please come up and accept the proclamation and perhaps share with our community members who are watching at home or here in the chamber everything about what you do.
There's a lot of what I do that I could cover. But I would just like to take a moment to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for the acknowledgement of National Preparedness Month. If the last few years have taught us nothing, it's that disasters can happen in any form, whether it be pandemic, wildfire, or heat and power outages. We've been so focused on earthquake preparedness, we kind of lose sight of some of the other things that can affect us on a seasonal basis, an annual basis, and this seems to be coming up more frequently for us. So I would just like to take a moment to thank all of the volunteers that are part of the Office of Emergency Management, and they're really the ones who spend the time out on the ground spreading the word about emergency preparedness. And I would also like to just reach out to the members and the residents of the city of Milpitas and let them know that if there is anything that they need in help for preparedness and preparing their family for a disaster, that's what the Office of Emergency Management is here for, is to work with the members of the community and help them prepare their families for a disaster. Thank you.
All right, I got a couple more proclamations, and then we'll go to our presentation with our Assembly member, Alex Lee. The next proclamation is National Cleanup Day. National Cleanup Day recognizes the need to protect the health and beauty of our city, as well as our nation. Our city takes great pride in its health and beauty and supports a clean, safe environment, now and in the future. Therefore, I, Mayor Rich Tran, on behalf of the City Council, proclaim September the 17th as National Cleanup Day here in the land of cornfields. All right. Next is the National Gymnastics Day Proclamation. National Gymnastics Day is a day held annually on the third Saturday of September as a way of getting young people more involved in the importance of exercise. On National Gymnastics Day, gymnastics clubs across the United States partner with USA Gymnastics to heighten visibility of the sport and encourage participation at the grassroots level. Therefore, I, Mayor Rich Tran, and on behalf of the City Council, proclaim September 17th, 2022 as National Gymnastics Day in the land of cornfields. Thank you. All right, those are the proclamations. And now I'd like to ask the City Council and the Vice Mayor to join me here as we welcome our Assembly member, Alex Lee.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Mayor Tran and the City Council. It's with my great pleasure today that I'm going to be presenting $2.5 million that we secured in this year's budget towards the City of Milpitas, which I'll elaborate a little bit more on. But, you know, it's my great pleasure that during my first term, I was able to serve on the State Budget Committee during though we have very hard pandemic induced inequalities, we still have a rapid surplus, and it's only right to reinvest that surplus back into community. And since Milpitas is, of course, my hometown, it's my great pleasure to reinvest in it. And some of those investments of this $2.5 million is going to go towards two key areas. And that's $1.5 million for Milpitas homelessness and prevention and unhoused services. This funding will support priority projects, including continuing the city's mobile shower unit and laundry services, establish the Milpitas Resource Center as a 2-year pilot program, and provide rent relief to vulnerable Milpitans. And I know that there are many Milpitas residents out there that have heavily been involved in supporting our unhoused residents, and I want to acknowledge them for all the incredible work they do. And this funding would, of course, not be possible without your advocacy. Groups like Hope for the Unhoused and Sleeping Bags for the Homeless. So I want to thank them as well as part of this. And then the other $1 million, $1 million will be for Milpitas Bike Lanes Enhancement. This funding supports upgraded bike lane infrastructure throughout Milpitas, including green colored intersection bike boxes, buffered bike lanes, and much more. And for more residents looking to cycle instead of drive, these are important upgrades, and it will be critical in improving cyclists' safety, especially as we are trying to get more cars off the road, reduce our traffic problems, and reduce our carbon footprints. And in closing, I would just like to take this opportunity to thank the city manager, Steve McHarris, our assistant city manager, Ashwini Kantak, Deputy City Manager Walter C. Russman, and the Milpitas City staff for the continued partnership with our office. And I think this is just a small sign of what is possible when our layers of government work together and deliver for our constituents. So look forward to working with the City Council and Mayor for many years to come. Thank you.
Doing a hell of a job.
Fantastic. Next up is the public forum. The public forum, folks. Those in the audience that would like to come up and comment on anything not on tonight's agenda, you're in the right place and the right time. Folks online, I welcome you the same virtually. Let's see, we have a few yes. Tonight's public comment period will be 1 minute. And any item not on tonight's agenda, we'll do our best to work with it, but we can't really discuss it. Perhaps we'll put it on a future agenda, but we'll see. First up, welcome.
Hi, thank you. My name is, Allison McDonald. I'm a longtime resident of Milpitas. I want to thank Assemblymember Alex Lee for his generous arrangement for funding from the state to help us continue the mobile shower units, which I know is very much appreciated by our unhoused community. Without being able to shower and do laundry, it's really hard to get ahead in your life and make progress. I also wanted to acknowledge that the council has on their consent calendar the extension until January of that, sort of as a stopgap. And I want to appreciate the city manager and council for taking care of that to make sure there's no break in service. And I'd like to encourage the city council to also make a priority extending the contract with Abode Services to continue doing their case management in the city, assessments and case
Thank you very
management.
much. Appreciate you. Very kind, very kind. Thank you. Those in the audience that would like to comment, Mr. Montemayor, please are coming up, sir.
Voltaire Montemayor, Milpitas. Presentations are great. No order of importance. Let me just touch the aftershock or after the event or before the event. We really have, we can save lives also, like the speaker about the emergency response team. Anyway, I'll say it again. I've said before that for us candidates to understand each other, it's tough out there doing our yard signs. I respect everybody's. So yeah, I know we respect each other. And that's all. I don't want to include the public now. I think they have reasons to disaccommodate us sometimes. So we understand. Please understand. Myself, I care for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Tom Laurie, resident of Milpitas. It would appear that the 1 minute time has been institutionalized by the city council. I would appreciate it if the city council would begin to show some respect to us residents and revert back to the 3 minutes that always had in the past been allocated to residents to get up here to speak. Show us some respect and show us that you respect our opinions and respect what we may have to say about any particular subject. 1 minute in most instances is not sufficient to make a cogent argument about anything. So I would appreciate you taking into consideration reverting back to 3 minutes as opposed to this 1 minute, which I don't understand how it's become institutionalized.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, public comment continues, 1 minute per person. Anybody else in the chamber? Seeing no further requests, looking to the left, looking to the right, going once, going twice. Seeing no further requests for public comment, let's go to the Zoom. Welcome, folks on the Zoom. I see just a handful of folks. If you'd like to speak, please raise your virtual hand. We want to make sure we give everybody an opportunity to speak. Time management is of the essence. I see no further requests from the Zoom. That's it for public forum. Thank you very much. Moving on to announcements and future agenda items. We'll go to our city manager, Steve McHarris.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Tran, members of the City Council. I do have a couple announcements. First, next Tuesday, September 13th at 6 p.m., the city will be hosting our third virtual community workshop on the city's housing element. The housing element is the city's plan for projected housing needs from 2023 through 2031. The workshop will cover potential new housing locations, existing housing programs, and proposed new housing programs. For more information, you can look to milpitashousingelement.com. Secondly, today we launched a new 12-month pilot program for our app-based transit service called Milpitas Smart. Milpitas Smart will operate Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The regular adult fare is $2.50 per ride, with a reduced fare of $1 per ride available for youth, disabled, and low-income users. The program is jointly funded by a $1 million grant from the Valley Transit Authority and development fees. The mobile app is easy to use. Users are now able to conveniently travel between virtual transit stops near their home or work locations to prime hubs, which include Milpitas Transit Center, Milpitas Town Center, and any of the 3 cities' VTA light rail stations, including the Great Mall. That concludes my announcements.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much. Very well done, Steve. Very well done, as indicated by the audience. Okay, great. I have no announcements. We'll go next. Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. At this time, I would like to request an agenda item to be placed at the next council meeting. I had touched briefly on it a couple of meetings ago, and this is in regards to the Halloween event that is sponsored by Sunny Hills, and we were talking about the special events permit. One of the biggest challenges with some of our groups is that at cash flow that they have, and they have to forefront the fees before it gets waived. My request is that I would like to ask the mayor and the council to please waive the Halloween party application, which is the annual event that happens at one of our local parks. This would allow this organization to have the cash flow to actually spend on the event versus putting it as a hold for the park. And so I would like to ask if we could please approve the waiver immediately in order for them to have the opportunity to host their event in a timely scheduled manner. And if this needs to be placed on the agenda, I'm kindly asking for this to be placed on the next council city agenda. Thank you for your consideration.
Yes, we have a standard protocol for any sort of fee waiver. Please have a nonprofit group or any nonprofit group, generally speaking, to contact. Is it city clerk? I believe it's city clerk's office or city manager. We can agendize that. Please have the nonprofit reach out to our city manager.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for that consideration. I just want to be clear, then this will be on the agenda for the next council meeting?
Yes, and then the council will decide for the approval per standard procedure.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that consideration. The next request that I'm asking is many of us have been, I'm sure, tapped by our community members as well as our educators in town in regards to national news, in regards to housing affordability for our teachers. One of the requests that I would like to kindly ask is if we could please place this conversation. I know that there is a commission that represents the city and has conversations with the school district. And although I did not see this item in previous task list or goals, I would like to place that as a goal into the work of this commission. And if there's anything that we could do as a council, then bring it forward to us. But I think I would like to understand as a council member, what are the options for partnerships between the city and the school district? What are the goals? What are the objectives? And then see and explore if there's anything that we could do on the city end to help move any of their goals forward to provide affordable housing for our educators, because that is becoming an emergency. And so I would like to place that. That doesn't need to come into agenda. I would just to place that into the commission that works on this.
I appreciate your request. The City of Milpitas and Milpitas Unified School District, the collaborative subcommittee have been meeting about the issue. At the last meeting, which is public record, we did vote to approve their Milpitas Unified School District proposed workforce housing resolution. And the collaborative subcommittee will continue to work together to achieve housing opportunities for those that teach in our city. Carry on.
Thank you very much for that. I will definitely look. I did not look at the minutes, are not available online. So thank you for that information. Is it possible for the liaison to provide the minutes and bring them back at the next council agenda in order for all 5 council members to review this item and how is it moving forward? And while there was a resolution that was passed, I did see the resolution. If it's the same one that passed to the school district, it still doesn't identify some of maybe the bureaucracy, red tape that the city may have with some of their goals. I'm still not understanding what the goal is as a city. I understand the goal in the resolution, but that doesn't really give me a roadmap. So I'm just wondering if maybe you could just provide the minutes for all 5 of us. And then that might help with the clarification. And I'm hoping the goal is in there.
Please contact the city manager for your request.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then that concludes my request for today. Thank you very much, Mayor.
And next up, we have Council Member Fan.
Well, I was actually just gonna thank the assembly member in his office for a pretty successful legislative session. I know he's left the building, but for our folks watching, there were a number of bills that were passed and signed by the governor recently. AB 2949, which would provide toll exemptions to our veterans. It's going to go a long way for our veterans who need that extra help during this time, and also AB 2164. That's the funding for ADA compliance. I know that's something that many of us on the council have advocated for. So that's going to be a huge source of support for our small businesses. And I hope to see some of you tomorrow at Taqueria Las Vegas for Assembly Member Lee's Latino Heritage honoree event. That's going to start at 6 p.m.
And next we have Council Member Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Last few weeks, the Housing Subcommittee met to go over the housing element. It was with Council Member Anthony Fan and myself. We are co-chairs of the subcommittee. And we found out that the average ADU built for the last 3 years is about 35 units. But this year, we already have 79 ADUs, and that is awesome. So I would like to request our city manager to have another ADU workshop. We actually did the workshop with a nonprofit organization. We didn't do much. They did all the work. And we just provided the venue, which was sponsored by Milpitas Chamber of Commerce. So I'm really excited about it. More ADUs this year. It's exciting. The statistics prove it. So I'm getting a lot of calls as well. So I would like to put that on the list. And the other one is, and I want to thank the council for approving. This Saturday is a celebration. This is the first time the senior center will be open on Saturdays. So this is really great. So we're looking forward to that. It will be from 9 to noon. Please come and celebrate with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Let the good times roll. And really quickly, I'm so happy to hear the letters A, D, and U. I happen to be in our neighborhoods a lot lately walking, and I've seen some pretty awesome ADUs. Like, we got to get somebody out there to take some photos. I mean, these ADUs are so nice, and there's so many varying designs. I think I walked by an ADU in the Pines neighborhood, and I was just astounded. I said, "Oh wow, this looks better than the actual original structure." But that's just my perspective. All right, next up we have the Vice Mayor of Milpitas, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to also make that comment about the ADUs. I did see some bills that Assemblymember Alex Lee had created on ADUs, and I really am glad that he is going to be putting that bill for the veterans as a council member. That was a really great idea. Just want to make a comment. On September 16th, we are going to have the first Mexican flag raising ceremony in Milpitas. I know many other cultures, Vietnamese flag raising, Indian, and it's always been a great success. So this will be the first one in Milpitas. And thank you for the mayor and councilmember for allowing my idea of having that in there as part of a city sponsored event. And look forward to having. We're going to have a mariachis. We're going to have folklorico dancers. It's going to be a great event. So welcome and come on down on September 16th from 6 to 7 p.m. Thank you much.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. And I can recall we had Hispanic Heritage Month, and I spoke with you, and you mentioned, or you didn't really mention it. You told me, you said, you know, we got to have the Mexican Independence Day. And so I didn't forget. I remember you brought that up. So looking forward to that event here where we do our flag raisings at Cesar Chavez Plaza. Thank you to our sponsors, Planning Commissioner Sonia Medina Ashby, Taqueria Las Vegas, and I think we got a couple other people. The best sandwiches, thank you. All right, that's it for announcements and future agenda items. Moving on here to announcement of conflict of interest and campaign contributions. We'll go to our city attorney, Michael Matalapasi.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked the mayor and each council member whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
And we'll go down the list here. Councilmember Chua.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Councilmember Fan.
None.
Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
And myself is a none. Michael.
Let the record reflect there are no reported conflicts. I will also ask Mayor Tran and members of the City Council, please disclose any campaign contributions of $100 or more received within the last 12 months from any of the parties entering into contracts with the city on tonight's agenda, or contributions received from the development project applicant for development projects on tonight's agenda.
And we'll go to Councilmember Chua.
None.
Councilmember Dominguez.
None.
Councilmember Fan.
None.
Vice Mayor Montano.
None.
Myself is a none.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And moving on to the reading of the City Council Code of Conduct. I'll go ahead and be respectful and courteous, model civility, avoid surprises, praise publicly and criticize privately, focus on the issue, not the person, refrain from using electronic devices while on the council dais to disclose conflicts of interest. Yep. and affiliations related to agenda items. Separate governing from campaigning. The council speaks with one voice after making policy on issues. Respect the line between policy and administration, and council hold one another accountable to comply with this code of conduct. Moving on to the approval of agenda. Looking for any requests from my colleagues. If not, I'll move to approve the agenda. We have a second from Councilmember Chua, and we'll do the roll call vote here. Got a motion from myself and a second from Councilmember Chua. We'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan. Get your microphone.
Aye.
There. Vice Mayor Montano. That's an aye from the Vice Mayor. Thank you very much. Moving on to consent calendar. It looks good to me. I was looking to add to the consent, but I don't think I can with item number 15 due to the financial part. We'll go to our, I think we have a comment here. Did you have a comment? Come on up to the microphone. Yeah. Can't hear you, sir. Yes.
Request item 13 be taken off of consent.
Okay. All right. We're going to pull item number 13, and that'll be heard after item number 19. Okay. Any further requests? Okay. Any comments? Any comments on the consent items? All right. We got the Vice Mayor, Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you. I'd like to pull C12.
Okay. We will pull 12. And that will go before 13. Chronological order. Okay. Any further requests, consent calendar? Okay, I'll go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar with items number 12 and 13 pulled out of there. And we'll listen to those two items after item number 19. Need a second. We got a second from Vice Mayor Montano, and we'll go down the line to vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Myself is an aye. That's the consent calendar. Very well. All right, item number 15, let's approve the 2022 Youth Advisory Commission Scholarship recipients. And we'll go to our Deputy City Manager, Walter Rossman.
Good evening, Mayor. Unfortunately, there's a little hiccup here. Is we're actually going to look at the Youth Sports Scholarship Program, item 15. We had to resend the agenda on Monday morning because we had some issues with the transmission to the council on Friday. So item 15 is review the proposed youth sports scholarship program city council policy. So let me go, and if you can bring it up, please. Perfect. Next slide, please. And I apologize, Renee Lorentzen, the Director of Recreation Community Services, unfortunately has connectivity issues tonight. She's trying to come on as soon as she can. So as a background, as part of the adoption of the budget, the council approved a one-time allocation of general fund dollars of $20,000 for the youth sports scholarship program. We were directed as part of the budget process to come back to the council with the framework on how to use those funds. That's what we're doing tonight. And we're asking the council to review the policy, the draft policy with us, and give us feedback. Next slide, please. What's the purpose? The purpose is that the city of Milpitas believes that the enjoyment of sports by youth in Milpitas is important to the well-being of its youth and the over-enrichment of the community. It should allow low-income Milpitas residents, youth athletes to enroll in sports, to submit funding requests to the city, and establish a standardized process for awarding scholarships. Next slide, please. What are the requirements for eligibility? First of all, it needs to be a resident of Milpitas and enrolled in the Milpitas school. It needs to qualify for low income according to a Milpitas assistance program. And it needs to be enrolled in the sports organization, which at least has 51% members of Milpitas residents. And the applicant's youth sport organization of choice must conduct business in compliance with non-discrimination requirements of the city, state, and federal government. And lastly, the applicant can request funds to assist with participation in amateur athlete crew. Slide, please. In order to ensure that somebody is eligible, we're asking for 3 proofs of residency, and that really has to do with the valid driver's license of the parent or the guardian, proof of enrollment to the school, Milpitas school, and lastly, that showing a statement which shows that the parent or the guardian lives within the city boundaries. In order to comply with MAP, it follows our standard procedure, where it's part of the PG&E Cares program or free or reduced lunch as part of MUSC. I'll provide proof of all fees related to scholarship requests. So basically want to see what they're going to spend the money on, enrollment in the extra class, and complete all required tax forms as needed, return any unused funds back to the city. Next slide, please. Funding categories could be regular league season enrollment fees, competitive enrollment, league enrollment fees, special tournament or event enrollment fees, and uniforms and equipment. We propose that the maximum award for the scholarship is $500. It means we could assist at minimum 40 youth athletes. Everybody exhausts the $500 scholarship. Next slide, please. The fiscal impact I talked about quickly. It's a one-time allocation from the general fund. If this council or future council would like to continue this program after this 1 year pilot, in essence, we would have to request that council take an action as part of the adoption of next year's or subsequent year's budgets. Next slide, please. Next steps are getting feedback from the council here today. What are the parameters we're setting are in the intent of the council. And then once we have these parameters locked in for you to get any feedback, then we'll come back in October with the final policy. We plan to implement it effective in November of this year. That's next slide, please. It takes me to the recommendation. We'll be asking for your feedback regarding this council policy and the proposed youth sports scholarship program. And I'm open for questions. So I think Renee is online as well. That concludes my presentation. Any questions? Somebody's talking. I can't.
Thank you, Walter. Yeah, I know you're good. Stand by.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you so much, Walter. I'm happy to see this agenda. I want to thank city staff for working on this, especially our Director of Recreation. Renee is really an expert in our community, not just in the department, but through the families and programs. I once was youth in one of our programs here in Milpitas in 1998. I was a football player with the Milpitas Knights program. Is this agenda item applicable to maybe a young player with the Milpitas Knights football program?
As long as I apologize for not knowing exactly who they are, but as long as they are within certain locations, 51%, and the student is a part of Milpitas High School, high school. Then any school for that matter.
Okay.
But if you go within the school and resides within the city, I think we're good to go.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Great. No, this is fantastic and wonderful. Definitely something personal to me. I know when I was a young player, paying that fee was a little challenging for myself, my family, and other players. But we love our youth programs here in town. I think Vice Mayor Montano, your grandson's out there right now with the Milpitas Knights, right? So definitely, this is very personal. Especially for the families that may need it. Some don't. But okay, I don't have much further comment on the item. I know staff is looking for some feedback. Let's go to Council Member Evelyn Chua for more discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Walter, I would like to see, I know I'm the liaison for the Youth Advisory Commission, and most of our awardees, the three students that we have, excel in scholarship. I would like to see something that they don't have to have a GPA of 3.5 and above. We can have a GPA of 2.5 to even a 2.0, but best improved. You see what I'm trying to get at? It's students that showed improvement. And I would need your help to quantify or create some measure, some guidelines so we can measure that. But I would like to have scholarship to students that showed best improved for the year or 2 years, something like that.
So I think what I hear you, council member, is that you would like to see some kind of academic improvements measured by GPA or any other matter. Is that what you're trying to?
Yes, something like that. Don't just focus on scholastic achievements. Something we can even focus on community service for students. You see, I don't see it there. Like it could be another scholarship for community service. They created something for the community.
Sure. If that's what the council desires, to bring up a different kind of scholarships, we can definitely do
Exactly.
that.
Right. And another one, so I have three. That was the second one. And the third one, I would like to see scholarship to focus to the NJROTC, because they're a special group of students. I remember my daughter was part of the NJROTC program, and she learned a lot about leadership. So I would like to have some allocation for the NJROTC, allocation for most improved, and allocation for community service. Those are my feedback. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome, Councilmember Chua. And Walter, you're taking notes. City Manager's Office is taking notes. I want to actually support that, Councilmember Chua, with more than just my words on the dais. Let me ask the City Manager. I got my $5,000 annual travel budget. I believe that's general fund. Can I, with the support of the council, take that $5,000 of my travel budget and put it towards Councilmember Chua's proposal? Is that possible?
I don't think that's possible tonight for the action, but it's something that you could bring up and it could be discussed by the council at a future meeting.
Okay. Can I agendize that then? When this kind of comes back, we'll do it in a sequence so that the proper process and procedure for the transferring of funds is appropriate. We can do that, right?
Yeah, if the council, city attorney, can the council give us that direction?
Yeah, not tonight, but down the road.
Yeah, we'll just do it at the mid-budget time. So that would be the time for you.
Yeah, I think we're doing $20,000 tonight. So just want to add more money to the pot so that we can help these kids. Okay. Next up, Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I really do like your idea. I'm hoping that we can allow your 5,000 for Councilmember Chua's suggestion for the NGROTC and these other groups. However, going back to this proposal, This proposal was brought up for low-income students that can't afford, families are poor families. And we have several of them in Milpitas. And I see this as a deterrent to keep kids on track with sports. It also gives them an opportunity for discipline, teamwork. I've seen so many kids that would love to have the opportunity to play in these team sports because it really, really would help them become successful citizens in the future. I see these grants as a deterrent to kids going the wrong way, getting into gangs. It really does help these kids. Also, it's an investment. It's an investment from our city and it shows that we really care about our kids because they are our future. So with that, I think the scholarship program will help families and students become successful citizens in society. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. Let's go to public comment for item number 15. Public comment. Come on up, Mr. Montemayor. We sort of matched tonight. I'm not sure if you noticed a little bit. Yeah. How you doing? Move to adjust the microphone to help you out.
Okay. Voltaire Montemayor Milpitas. I champion this agenda. I'm for the future champions of Milpitas. In other words, no reluctance, no hesitation. We have to collaborate. We have to help these sport-minded people. We want champions of Milpitas in any boat, in any sports.
Yes.
If you include chess, if you include extracurricular activities, I'm for this. Let's make this Milpitas full of champions. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. Whew. I feel that. We are champions. All right. Public comment. Public comment. Anybody else in the chamber? Okay, I'll go to the Zoom. Seeing no virtual raised hands on the Zoom. That's public comment for this item. I just want to circle back around. I know we're going to provide feedback. What is the process? I feel like I know it, but that $5,000 travel budget I have, I really want to just transfer it over to the youth. I grew up here and I participated in Milpitas programs, youth programs, and this is something I want to do before I leave office in December. So would rather not wait until the mid-year. It's a $5,000 transfer. I know the council is very capable of performing this process. And it's possible. So is it possible? I just want to.
The council would need to agree to do it. And again, we would defer at that.
Not tonight, but
your midterm. I think the thing to remember is that the mayor's position is good through this year, but the fiscal year runs the entire year. So you'd actually be removing the 5,000 for the next mayor or another council member. Those funds would not be available if they were transferred out. And it is for travel and training, and the training is, an ideal opportunity for new council members coming onto the council.
When will this item come back to us?
In October.
October, yeah. Yeah, I think I'm here, so I want to make I want to roll that into the direction to move the mayor's $5,000 travel budget, which is under me right now, to the proposals that Councilmember Chua recommended for the youth. I think about the NJROTC and my experience with the military, and there's nothing more important than supporting the future patriots of our nation. So I'll connect with you offline to see what the process is, but I don't think it's impossible. Okay. But that should be noted in the feedback from myself to staff. Thank you. All right, let's go to Vice Mayor Montano.
So thank you, Mayor. So a question for the city attorney, can we make a friendly amendment to this or do we still need to wait?
So Vice Mayor, there's no motion that's going to be made tonight on this.
I know, but
So you wouldn't be making a friendly amendment. What staff is doing is asking for your feedback. So whatever feedback you're giving to staff They'll do their best to incorporate in the policy moving forward and then finalize that policy with you in October.
Do that.
Thank you very much. Next up, we have, yes, Deputy City Manager Rossman, please.
Mayor, obviously, if we see a consensus on the council regarding the various items and ideas you have, it makes our life a little bit easier.
Sorry, I didn't catch that. One more time, please.
If there's consensus by the council, the majority, that certain feedback you would like us to incorporate into the policy when we come back, then we understand the majority of the council is supporting these changes.
Okay, we'll see, I guess. Thank you very much. All right, thank you, our Deputy City Manager, Walter Rossman. Next up, Councillor Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I personally support fully this program. I think it's really important for us to help everybody and help all of our families have an equal opportunity to be part of our programs. I also definitely understand your willingness to give up your travel budget. One thing that I would like to maybe give you some feedback, if it sounds like you want to do it immediately, Mayor, is you could always give up your stipend and you could just write a personal check and put it into the nonprofit for the city. Then that's immediate and you get that check every 2 weeks. So that's definitely something that you could do as well. Thank you so much for bringing this item forward. I think it's a great opportunity for our youth and I look forward to being implemented. Thank you.
Next up, we have Councilmember Fan.
Yeah, thank you. I support my colleague Councilmember Chua's suggestion with the JROTC program. I don't think it needs to be one or the other. I think expanding access to youth opportunities is always a good idea. It's a good investment. JROTC itself is also a good deterrence for a lot of the troublesome activities out there, gang activities, drugs and whatnot. And I've seen it work. I've been part of the ROTC program myself. Albeit it was Army JROTC. But at the end of the day, you learn a lot of the leadership values that they teach you through the culture. That said, though, I do think we should have more flexibility in terms of being able to generate funds for social causes. I know that the most obvious tool, right, is our general fund process, and there's certain limitations that we must follow, such as the timing and whatnot. However, I know that some other cities create a separate entity where it would be tax exempt as an incentive for donors to contribute to the city's separate entity, and with the sole purpose of it going towards social causes whenever events come up and whatnot. So if that's something that sparks interest amongst my colleagues, I think it would definitely behoove us to have that conversation, or at the very least explore it. Another option, from my understanding, although it's not tax exempt, is if we have our campaign committees that are still active, you can actually convert it to an office holder committee, which doesn't have limits, and you can raise funds and reallocate that to your liking, and that's a relatively simple process. I would encourage you to work through our clerk and the city attorney on that. But that said, there are options to be explored outside of the general budget process. I think it's just really important that we get the clear guidance on it. So that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've took public comment for item number 15. We've heard comments from my colleagues on the dais. And so let's go ahead and conclude with our feedback here for item number 15. From what I've heard, we've had Councilmember Chua's 3 proposals. Can you repeat those 3 quickly and kindly, Councilmember Chua? If you do me the pleasure. Let me get your microphone.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. Allocation for best improved students, allocation for students with community service, and allocation focus on NJROTC.
Okay, great, fantastic. Also part of the feedback, I'd like to sort of initiate the process to take my travel budget of $5,000 and apply it to this agenda item, and we can work forward. I know anything is possible on this dais. Well, not everything, not anything, but many things are possible. And I like to see the possibilities happen. Okay, any further requests from my colleagues? If not, I'll look to the city manager. I think we have everything we need. City attorney, yep. Okay. That's item number 15. Thank you, everybody. Let's move it on to item number 16. Appoint members to the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, Cedaw Community Task Force. And we'll go back to our Deputy City Manager, Walter Rossman.
Thank you, Mayor. If you could have the PowerPoint presentation, please. Next slide, please. There we go. So the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, of Cedaw, and it's an international human rights treaty that brings attention to a range of issues concerning women's human rights. The Council supported the Convention by adopting an ordinance in June 2020, which directed the establishment of a community task force. It specifically laid out there should be a total of 4 task force members, 3 recruited from the community with subject matter expertise related to economic development, healthcare, violence against women and girls, and 1 youth liaison member from the club Girl Up from the Milpitas High School. Further, one task force should include a non-voting council liaison and a non-voting staff liaison. City staff then went out and got a grant, and they got awarded from the California Commission on the Status of Women and Girls. And this grant funds are in order for staff support. And these grant funds need to be spent by March 23. Next slide, please. The City Council approved City Commission handbook that describes what the task forces shall be used for. And it says the Milpitas City Council may choose to appoint residents to serve on ad hoc advisory bodies. And the requirements of the task force is to work through the issues and then bring updates to the council throughout the work and conclude with a final report. Next slide, please. Consistent with the City Council approved handbook, the Cedaw Task Force had to be subject to Brown Act and Open Meetings Law, and the City Council liaisons and staff liaisons, as I mentioned before, are ex officio members. They help guide or inform the discussion of the task force as needed. Next slide, please. We received 7 applications, and we're recommending that 4 applicants should be appointed to the task force. Juliana Braham, she's Adult Education Principal for MEUSD, the categories of economic development. Dr. Sarvati Sitka is a physician for healthcare. Zakia Afrin is a board member of Domestic Violence Victims Advocacy. And lastly, Vicky Lai, she is the ASB president, the Girl Up Club from Milpitas High School. She will be the youth liaison. Next slide, please. For the ordinance, the City Council is asked tonight to appoint, the mayor is asked to propose, and the council concur, the appointment of a council liaison. The city manager has appointed Ashwini Kantat as our assistant city manager as staff liaison. Next slide, please. The recommendations is to approve the appointment of the 4 task force members. and to consider the mayor's appointment of a city council member to the task force as a city council liaison. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much, our Deputy City Manager, Walter Rossman. Let's go straight to public comment for agenda item number 16. Mr. Montemayor, come on up, sir.
Voltaire Montemayor, Milpitas. I see the names already and the titles, but of course, it's not the title most of the time. It's like the hands-on. For me, my mother was stronger, even though I'm masculine. He was stronger. My sisters are strong. My wife, very strong. Every woman are very strong. I respect. Even, I don't want to mention politics, but the two in front of me are very strong. In other words, we're competing. So yeah, the CDAW, it's good. We'll approve it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. Sir, any further comment for item number 16 here in the chamber? Go to the left, go to the right, going once, going twice. Seeing no requests for comment on item number 16. Let's go to the Zoom. It's a hybrid meeting, folks. We're still doing hybrid meetings. I think it's great. I think hybrid meetings should be here to stay. Shout out to our guest on Zoom. Seeing no virtual raised hands. If you would like to speak, you're here with us. Okay, no virtual raised hands. That's it for public comment for item number 16. And we'll get back to the agenda item and we'll see if there's any requests for discussion. All right, here's one. Council member Afan.
Yes, thank you. I remember having the initial preliminary conversations about the introduction, the mere introduction of a Cedaw policy, and it took a lot of years in the making. It was explored several years ago, and you know we've come a long way. I think the last time when we had this conversation, I was very humble to be included in the process, working alongside my colleague, Councilmember Dominguez, who really led the charge on this effort. I know this is something that's personal to a lot of my colleagues, issue that affects so many young women and children throughout the county. And I'm glad that we're actually taking the charge here. I know a lot of cities have a lot longer way to go. I don't think enough light is shed onto what it takes to make a successful gender equality policy. And it takes leadership working with multiple agencies. It does take funding, obviously. But that said, I think, I would ask our council to appoint somebody who really led the charge on this issue, and that's Councilmember Dominguez. I'm happy to nominate her if my colleagues would stand by me. At the end of the day, I don't think this is a political issue. It's a issue of social justice, the issue of gender equality. It's an issue of progress. It's not partisan. It's not. It shouldn't be divisive, and it's fairly straightforward. So I hope I can count on the support of my colleagues here. That said, whatever you do, I do also want to recognize the work of staff, because this was, as I mentioned, years in the making, could not have been accomplished without our the city manager's office, as well as our city attorney's office, including the work of Chris Diaz from BBK. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Fan. I'll second your sort of motion or recommendation. I second that as the only other male elected official. It's our duty and the right thing to do for this item to support women. And I second your recommendation into the motion ultimately for Councilmember Dominguez. Take one quick note, which is I think when we first started, Councilmember Fan, there was only one woman that was on this dais. So, I don't fail to look up and see three amazing women that we were able to work with: the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano, Councilmember Dominguez, and Councilmember Evelyn Chua, the first Filipina elected to the city council. And having been raised by a single mom myself, and I know we share some similarities with our moms and stuff. I think this is an item that we can be very proud of tonight. So I second your recommendation for Councilor Dominguez to be on this task force. Any further public comment? I'll go to the city attorney.
Yeah, may I clarify the motion that's on the table? Councilmember Fan, did you intend to make a motion? And was your motion to confirm the 4 member?
Shoot, my bad. Get microphone. Sorry, shoot.
Was your motion to confirm the 4 members recommended by staff, and then to confirm the mayor's appointment of Councilmember Dominguez to the Cedaw ad hoc committee?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And
And
Mayor, did you second that motion?
I'm going to, and I second that. We've already received public comment. We got a motion from Councilmember Fan. We have a second from myself. Any further comments from my colleagues on the dais? If not, I'll go to the vote. And we'll go to Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
That's an aye from Councilmember Dominguez. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
Then myself as an aye, the motion is carried. Item number 16, we have just approved, which is the appointment of 4 task force members and the appointment of Councilmember Dominguez representing the council. And I think we have staff liaison there as well, as appointed by the city manager. Steve McHarris appointed, Ashwini Kantek. Excellent. Okay, great job. All right, moving on. Item number 17, introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas, adding Chapter 9, use of rights of way and public property to Title 10, the streets and sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code, and adding section sort of 10-10-1.03 to Chapter 10, structures or objects on sidewalks or public ways, to Title 10, streets and sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code. And we'll go to our city attorney, Michael Motalapasi.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't come up with the numbering system for the record. I followed the numbering system. So here we're looking at basically the use of the public right of way. This was a request made by the council to my predecessor to bring back an ordinance that would ensure the use of the public right of way for everyone. Next slide, please. So here's some of the findings as to why the city would want the public right of way clean and maintained and available to everyone, to maintain pedestrian and authorized commercial activity which is essential to public safety and thriving neighborhoods, maintain commercial traffic, especially in the hours of economic and industrial business, and to ensure that people who are sitting or lying on the sidewalks during those business hours aren't threatening the safety of pedestrians, the elderly, disabled, vision impaired people, or children. Next slide, please. What ends up happening or can end up happening is a cycle of decline. Business areas and neighborhoods become dangerous to pedestrian safety and economic vitality. The businesses that are there are no longer supported because there is no pedestrian traffic. As those businesses go out of business, a cycle of decline occurs. Next slide, please. The flip side of the coin is that all residents in Milpitas need to be treated with dignity and have a level of safety. In order to address street homelessness, the city needs to use a trauma-informed approach, and the city must do its best to maintain the dignity and safety of all residents. Next slide, please. So the ordinance being introduced specifically deals with the legality of uses on the public right-of-way. It contains a certain number of blanket prohibitions for sitting, lying, or sleeping by storing, using, or maintaining, or placing personal property or erecting any tent or structure in the public right-of-way. These blanket prohibitions or prohibitions that take place everywhere in the city and at all times in the city would be sitting, lying, sleeping, or having public property that impedes ADA passage, within 10 feet of a driveway or loading dock, within 5 feet of an entrance or exit to a building or designated emergency egress pathway, within 5 feet of a fire hydrant, anywhere that impedes the activity of a subject to a city permit. So this would be a sidewalk encroachment permit for repair of utilities in the public right of way, maybe a parade permit, something along those lines. And then anywhere within the public right of way between the hours of 7 a.m. and 11 p.m. And finally, anywhere that would impede bicycle or vehicular traffic. Next slide, please. The ordinance also gives the council the right to create prohibitions in specific areas by directing staff to erect signage in those areas. Signed areas could include sensitive areas. These would be public buildings, school, daycare center, public park, rec center, or public library. They could also include an overpass, underpass, tunnel, bridge, pedestrian bridge, wash, or spreading ground. And then it gives special power to the council to have a resolution to declare any place that would result in an ongoing threat to public safety to be a prohibition. The final prohibition can only last for 1 year and requires a resolution of council. Next slide, please. The resolution has some notice requirements if the city is going to remove property from the public right of way. The ordinance requires at least 24 hours of prior notice before property being removed. The reality is it will likely remain 72 hours, except in emergency cases where less than 72 hours is required. Generally, prior to removing property from the public right of way, there's going to be outreach by housing outreach workers. Any property that's removed that's not abandoned property will be stored for 90 days. There'll be no fee to store the property. The notice must include the contact information for housing, shelter, and homeless services, and notice will be left both before and after removal of any property from the public right of way. Next slide, please. The ordinance will be enforced with escalating punishments. So there will be no enforcement action if somebody's violating the ordinance initially. there'll be a verbal warning by an officer that the person's in violation. If the action is corrected upon that warning, there would be no enforcement. Punishment escalates from a $50 fine up to a $500 fine and 30 days of imprisonment in county jail, depending on the frequency of violations. This particular ordinance explicitly allows for community service in lieu of the fine. Next slide, please. The other change that's been made to the code by this proposed ordinance creates section 10-10-1.03. So section 10-10-1.01 discusses the removal of property from the public right of way that currently exists in the city. This ordinance was written in the 90s and generally considers recycling containers that are placed inappropriately, newspaper stands that are placed inappropriately, things of that nature. This is probably not appropriate for property of the unhoused. So section 10-10-1.03 specifically excludes the removal of property of someone who cannot otherwise obtain shelter under section 10-10-1.01. So then if that property is being removed, it would be the appropriate notice requirements in the rest of the ordinance. Next slide. So the recommendation is to move reading beyond the title and introduce the ordinance.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Yeah, I'm happy to see this item back here tonight. Let's go straight to public comment. If you'd like to if you'd like to comment and provide public comment on item number 17, now's the time. Come on up.
Good afternoon. Good evening. I'm very concerned about this. I think it's discriminatory. It's probably, want to make sure that we're truly trying to stay in compliance with the Boise decision, and I'm sure our attorney knows what I'm talking about. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. I'm shocked that this is being proposed because there have been court cases all over the country about this sort of thing. And you talk about treating people with dignity, but not allowing them to be the only place they can be. There's no other shelter available. We don't have any shelters available in Milpitas. So what's the alternative? How is this going to be in compliance with the Boise decision? Thanks.
It is. Thank you. And next up. Okay. All right, Mr. Montemayor, I think I seen you. Okay. Mr. Valor, yes, come on up.
Tom Glory, resident of Milpitas. Why don't you call this what it is? It's an attempt to say nobody who is unhoused can set up any place to live in the city of Milpitas. You've precluded any place, anywhere from being occupied by anybody who doesn't have a home. And without providing any alternatives when you remove those individuals from the locations that they've chosen to try to set up a place to live at. We don't have any shelters. We don't make any provision for when we sweep individuals away from where they've attempted to house themselves. We just hope by removing them
Thank you very much.
that
Appreciate
they will
you. Thank
leave
you.
the
Thank you
area.
so much. Thank you for your comments. Thank you, sir. You're excellent. Thank you. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks for coming out tonight. You're an excellent person. Thank you, sir. That's 1 minute. Each person gets 1 minute. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Montemayor, you're next. All right. We'll respect each other's time. Let's respect each other's time.
Voltaire Montemayor, Milpitas. I understand fully well what was expressed by the two previous speakers. I'm in general talking about, this one for me, it relates a little bit to with abatement. The no trapping principle. In other words, keep away, no trapping. And this is for agricultural and farming in my way. We have the other way of the reverse of right of way is the eminent domain, but this doesn't apply. I understand now as per the previous speakers. In other words, it's tough. I cannot say the side is we help those who doesn't have places to stay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Okay, any further comment from the chamber? Looking to my left, looking to my right, going once, going twice. Let's go to the Zoom. Virtual raised hands for anybody here for item number 17. Any virtual raised hands on the Zoom? I see no virtual raised hands. Thank you. That's public comment. And we'll bring the discussion back up here. I want to really just take some time to share my thoughts on how important this item is to the public safety of our community. Our city attorney has gone over the language, and yes, of course, we would not put forward any decision that would conflict with court decisions. I think we're a little brighter than that, and we appreciate your faith. I actually have concerns about the public safety of Milpitas. We took a look at the PowerPoint presentation. Let's go ahead and bring up the slide about ADA compliance. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. Oh, there you go. You one more back there. Okay. And so we do have a lot of seniors and disabled in our community. This policy that is proposed tonight actually exists in other cities in our great state of California. And one of the reasons, just one, that this policy was put into place in other cities is because of public safety. I did some research and I found that, I think it was Los Angeles, there were persons with personal property that were in the public right of way. And through this research, I found out that the person that was walking through the public right of way had to veer onto the public road where they were struck by a vehicle during a time where auto versus pedestrians are increasing and the number of people dying in our streets due to auto versus pedestrians is increasing. The person in the case that I'm bringing up, they were struck by a vehicle, but they did not die, fortunately. But they ended up taking legal action against that jurisdiction, and the city was held liable because they didn't provide the public right of way on this jurisdiction's public right of way. I do not accept for any sidewalk or ramp to be impeded in Milpitas. This proposal tonight is not a 24/7 proposal. If folks really want to take a look at the presentation, it's only certain hours of the day. Furthermore, as you can see from this slide, 5 feet from a fire hydrant, I'm pretty sure no one's opposed to that. 10 feet of a driveway or loading dock, I'm pretty sure you don't want people laying or sitting in or near a driveway. I don't think anybody's opposed to that. That's pretty dangerous as it is in Milpitas. Let's take a look. Let's do some reading a little bit. Let's see here. Vehicular traffic, say no more. Let's go one slide forward here. Let's just dig into the language. It's important to read. Let's see, one slide forward, please. I think it's the slide with other areas. There it is, sensitive areas. Prohibitions on sitting, lying, or sleeping, or by storing, using, maintaining, or placing personal property or erecting any tent or structure. Let's see, daycare center, public park, recreation center, public library, other places. Let's see. Okay. Let's take a look here at the third bullet. These are important. These are important keys, I'll call it keys, to what this proposal is tonight. The third bullet here, any location this council deems necessary as a result of ongoing threat to public safety. So in the event that there is a location that requires serious attention, that decision would come back to the council and there would be a discussion, more public engagement, and then a decision would be made. It says here, requires a resolution of the council. And so this policy proposed tonight is very deliberate. And I think there's going to be a careful discussion on how this is going to go about. It is not a blanket over the city. This is very much a local public safety concern, as the words on the presentation declare. And our goal as a city council is to make sure everybody stays alive. Our job is to make sure at the end of the day, people are alive. And this policy tonight is a step towards ensuring that. Okay, we'll go to my colleagues for any further discussion. We'll go to Councilor Van.
Thank you. I feel very conflicted about this policy. While I certainly acknowledge the liabilities and the public safety hazards, public health, even, not just to the broader at-large community, but our community's most vulnerable groups are at risk when they don't have housing and don't have shelter, for that matter. I think it's an important distinction to be made because a lot of folks don't actually have access to shelter. At the end of the day, I certainly see the merits of some of these standards. However, I think it should only be enforced if we have the adequate means to mitigate and provide the shelter and the housing. Because in the meantime, when we enforce it, what are folks supposed to do? Where do they go? And for a lot of folks, they don't have an option. They're not choosing to be seen as a nuisance to a lot of people who make a lot of these complaints. If it were up to a lot of people, these folks, they would seek the housing, they would seek the resources, but we don't have that right now. And that's a problem of its own. So I think the appropriate way to handle this topic would be to include the stakeholders that have the resources to make that happen. Policy should be enforced in conjunction with the resources, because otherwise we'll be endlessly trying to enforce a situation that might not be realistically solvable with the limited means and resources. That's my take on it. I think that the timing is very important. The timing to have the framework, the infrastructure in place, and I think we're getting there. We're having a lot of these conversations right now, and there seems to be an added community support for more sheltered service. However, until we actually accomplish that and have a plan in place, because we're barely holding on, just working with a boat, and they are merely providing assessments. There's an entire bureaucratic process that people have to fight their way through just to get on the queue and get approved for housing. If that process is reformed, then yeah, absolutely. I think if housing is available, then folks have a responsibility to seek it. And we have a responsibility to ensure safe neighborhoods. But in the meantime, I think this is very difficult to enforce. So that's my take on it. I can't support this at this time.
Yes, I hear you. I think you said safe neighborhoods, and I don't think it's safe for anybody to be in the public right of way of oncoming traffic, but that's your prerogative. Councilmember Dominguez.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is a topic that I'm also trying to understand what the goal is and how we could get there. One of the things that I've learned being on this council the last 4 years is that we need to really be very mindful of the policies that we pass that could have long-lasting effects, unintended effects. But yeah, I just want to understand the goal. So I keep hearing public safety. I keep hearing safe neighborhoods. So the goal is to keep our neighborhoods safe. The presentation at hand talked about policies that could potentially move the city in that direction by not allowing certain things to happen. However, is there a slide on the enforcement piece? I believe there was a slide. Do you mind bringing that up, please? Because I would like to ask a couple of questions. Okay, so what I am seeing is if there is a violation, there is then a citation. Correct, Steph? I just want to walk it through my head of how enforcement would take place. So a citation would then be given to the person that's doing the violation.
That's not exactly correct, Councilmember Dominguez. There would be a warning And if compliance is achieved by way of the warning, then no citation will be issued and no citation could be issued.
I think I want the public to also understand how I'm thinking about this. So it's like, let's say that somebody has parked their car for 3 days, I believe that's the cap, and then they don't move their car. Do they get a warning? It's someone. Maybe the chief could help me just
Well,
try to.
I kindly ask our police chief,
Thank you, Mayor.
Jared Hernandez here to add to the discussion. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council and city staff. Jared Hernandez serving as your police chief. So the question is for abandoned vehicles. So what happens is after we receive a complaint or an officer notices a vehicle that's been stored on the roadway in excess of 72 hours, they do put a warning notice on the vehicle. It's an orange sticker, very visible, lets the owner know that it needs to be moved, and it cites the municipal code, which authorizes that, as well as the vehicle code. So there is a warning in there. Typically, we will go, even though it says 72 hours, our practice is more like 10 days before we go back to follow up.
I'm just going to pause, not to really interrupt, just so I could kind of compare the policy, because it sounds like they might be similar in enforcement. And again, I'm goal oriented. The goal is to protect our community. So I just want to make sure that there is enforcement that is realistic. And we have an example that I am comparing. I do think it's pretty alike. So far it's the same. Now, after the warning comes, then does the car get towed, or could they just move the car and then that cycle starts again of 72 hours?
So as long as the vehicle is moved and no longer being stored on the roadway, then it would basically reset the clock. However, just moving it a couple feet or pushing it does not satisfy the municipal code.
Now, moving back to this policy that's at hand, city attorney, would that be the same thing in this policy? If there's somebody obstructing or violating the policy, they could just move a little bit, and then does the time start again?
So the analogy is not exactly analogous. It would depend on how they were violating this policy. For instance, if they had set up a very large area that violated ADA, then simply moving wouldn't reset everything. If they had merely set up a tent in off hours, then waiting until 11 and setting up a tent again that didn't violate ADA would be allowed.
Thank you. This is exactly why I'm working. And thank you so much for both of you for answering those questions. Now then, city attorney said it would cite into an actual fine, which according to the screen could be $50 to $500. Does that fine then come from the Milpitas Police Department?
So the initial offense would be an infraction that would be between $50 or $100. And then again, uniquely for this ordinance, community services authorized, they wouldn't have to make the normal showings under the penal code to do community service.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed the answer. So just wondering, is the enforcement then being done by MPD to give that citation of $50, or who does the fine? Is it the city or is it MPD?
So an officer would issue a ticket. It would be an infraction similar to a traffic ticket.
Okay. And then the officer then is called to give this infraction. The officer then could use their power of, I guess, when does it kick the 30 days of imprisonment in county jail?
So it's escalating. You'd have to have a number of violations within a short period of time.
And what is that number of violations?
So a person violating the provision within 120 days after the date of conviction of a previous conviction.
Okay. Chief, if then the violation is 120 days and it escalates to 30 days of imprisonment in county jail, an officer then would move their discretion to move this individual and not just find them, but arrest them, take them to county jail. Who would then authorize this individual to stay in jail? Because once MPD does the arrest, they give them over to the jail. Could you just walk us through that portion of who does say you are now mandated to be in jail? Because that's not MPD. Then that moves into what hands? Could you just maybe walk us through that process?
So Councilmember Dominguez is still maybe my domain.
I'm so sorry, with all due respect, I kind of want the audience to understand what happens when an individual gets arrested. MPD takes them, they move them through processing. So I just want the audience to move and understand that process of enforcement. Chief, what happens when you arrest somebody in 30 days and then what happens? Who do you turn them into, or who dictates how many days they spend in jail and if they get that type of enforcement?
So the process would be, if it's okay to go back to infractions, if we
Absolutely.
can start at the bottom and work our way to the top, if everybody's okay with that. So if it was an infraction, meaning the first or couple first violations, those would be written by an officer only after warnings were levied. And then those would be, the citation would then go to the traffic court. And it's the traffic court that would levy the fines. And then there's some fee structure where the courts get their portion and then whatever revenue is filtered down to the city through that process. If it were to escalate to the $500 or 30 days in jail, once it becomes a misdemeanor for repeated violations, then we would typically write a report. It would be sent to the district attorney's office, the city attorney, as well as our code enforcement locally. If there was a contestment about the arrest or the violation, then it would be heard in the Superior Court, and it would be the city attorney that is present on behalf of the city. The DA is not involved in it. And then it would go through that court process. They would have whatever trial they would have, and it would go the standard route there.
Thank you very much, Chief. So I'm not too sure if folks caught that. It's the DA. The DA makes the ultimate decision if they're going to prosecute the person that comes to before them for this type of crime. I could best assure you right now. Thank you, Chief. I won't put you on the spot anymore. Thank you. I'm now going to ask the question. You could Google it. And this is where I am going to share some of my own professional experience. I am a certified crime prevention specialist. I work around law enforcement over 40 hours a week. In this region, we're having a challenge with people being prosecuted for even basic robbery, smash and grabs. And that's just the rules that come from the state, and it's up to the DA's office. The DA is not going to more probably than not, they're not going to prosecute somebody for these types of offenses. So then why are we making a policy that has no teeth? Currently, if there's a call of somebody doing this, they could already get arrested if they are doing a criminal act or if they're acting in a way that is unsafe for the community. That call just needs to come in. So my point is, there is no enforcement. None. Excuse me, I'm still speaking.
Point of order. You're speculating, and also we do have enforcement. I think what you're referring to is actually the DA's decision to persecute. Carry on.
Actually, that is not what I said. And my experience is solely on my professionalism in law enforcement. There is no enforcement. You could ask any officer off duty if the DA is going to put them, they probably would say no.
Point of order. Let's go to the point of inquiry. Can we get our chief here? In terms of law enforcement, and I believe the police department is a law enforcement agency here in Milpitas, do we provide enforcement in relation to tonight's proposed policy?
Thank you for the question. So I think that what's important is to understand that the police department's role is different than the district attorney's role. The police department's finding is probable cause. Our burden of proof is much lower. When a district attorney evaluates if they're going to file or levy charges in a criminal case, they're looking beyond reasonable doubt. They're looking at jury appeal and a lot of different aspects within the prosecutorial process. With that said, with crime and how we're dealing with things, the police department must remain independent in how they enforce whatever sections are out there. We cannot make a decision based on what we think the DA may or may not do, because if we did that, then we would be, it's not appropriate for us to be making that decision at our level is basically what I'm trying to say.
Absolutely. And that's exactly the point, audience. Police departments are there to move into that call of service. However, there is things that are out of their decisions once they move into a different part of the system. So if we do not have the DA here today saying they're going to prosecute these crimes, I would like to know, did we get a statement from the district attorney's office, or did we reach out to the attorney? Did we reach out to the district attorney's office to see what their take on this policy?
Councilmember Dominguez, we did not. However, a complaint under this ordinance would more likely be written by my office than the district attorney's office.
Correct. But and then it moves into, again, are they being prosecuted? And that's a conversation. It doesn't sound like anybody could say yes or no, because the district attorney's office is the one that determines that.
But no, Councilmember Dominguez, if my office wrote the complaint, then my office would be the prosecuting in the name of the people.
Right, but in the sense, it would be in the name of the people. But let's say that the DA didn't want to place this person in jail. They wouldn't have to place them in jail.
The DA would not be involved.
And then is your office then? So let me ask you this. Mayor, I'm going to call you out on your behavior. I'm speaking and I want more respect. It's part of our rules. So I'm going to ask you, be a little bit more respectful. So what I am asking you is that you would put in the complaint. So then what happened? And so then we're going to go ahead and place somebody that has crossed this into jail. Who decides how many days do they stay in jail? Is that your office?
My office would prosecute in the name of the people. If the person is found guilty, then generally a judge would issue a sentence.
So then it goes back to the judicial community. Right now, the judicial system is not going to take these cases. They're overdated with robberies, smash and grabs, the stealing of catalytic converters.
Point of information, I want to go to City Attorney. Is there a distinction between your office going directly to the judge rather than the DA, which handles separate sort of cases?
So a judge would not be able to dismiss unilaterally a matter that was brought in the name of the people. The prosecuting agency would have to do that. So there would be limits to prosecution under this ordinance based on the resources of my office. And that's something that this council would, of course, have to discuss at budget season. But a judge could not unilaterally dismiss a complaint without the agreement of the prosecutor.
Correct.
Under specific circumstances, they could demur to the complaint or something like that.
And so could you share with the public how many people work in your office right now?
I'm currently budgeted for 2 attorneys.
How many do we have now?
Just me.
So community, it goes back to the conversation of the goal. The goal is public safety. What I am hearing is that there is no resources currently right now to even hold space for this workload. What I'm also hearing is that regardless if these individuals get the fines from the city perspective, These individuals don't have the money to pay the fines. So we round up back to the same issue, which is these individuals
Point of
will
information.
continue to speak
Point of
in
information.
our places. So it's
Point
really
of
important
information.
for us.
We'll go to the city attorney here.
I'm
Let's go to point of information based on what the council member Dominguez stated. First part, they stated that we don't have the resources to process these cases. And then the second point, can the city attorney point of information, please?
Well, I'm certainly qualified to bring complaints on behalf of the people and have done so in my capacity in municipal government in the past. The answers to how many resources are required for prosecutions under this ordinance would depend entirely on how many tickets were written and what the nature of those tickets were. Certainly, we have the resources to prosecute some. There would be a finite limit, and I couldn't evaluate what that limit is off the top of my head.
Thank you. And I also want to clarify rules of order of when a mayor could use their gavel. It's not for point of information. So that is actually just dismissive behavior. And so I want our public to understand there is rules to using that gavel. Point of information is not one of them. And you can find it in the handbook that was provided to us in the beginning of our training as an elected member.
When there's a point, there's the gavel. Thank you very much.
Now, so because there is no enforcement, there is no resources, this is just a tactic because it's election season. And personally, it has no teeth. We're still, if the goal is public safety and the goal is to get individuals out of these sidewalks and crossing, which I am very concerned about as well, I want to get the help that they need because they're just going to come back. So I do want to ask the chief one question. When there's already calls of service for unhoused members in our community who are already doing this kind of, maybe, this kind of behavior in private spaces, they go through the process. Do they come back to the Milpitas once they get released, if they do get arrested? Would you say that the majority comes back to the original place that they got arrested, or do they go elsewhere?
So at the beginning of the question, it sounded like an ordinance in means of this ordinance, but we don't have.
Yeah, so let's say right now, if there is an in-house member that's disturbing the peace, let's say, right, in a private setting, because that's already part of something, someone could call the police, you could come in and force this individual to get off private property. If they go through the process of getting arrested by the Milpitas Police Department, going through the DA's office, let's say the DA doesn't charge them, where do they usually go back? Do they go back to the place where they usually started?
So when we're talking about the unhoused population in the city of Milpitas, it's not just Milpitas unhoused individuals that we deal with. We also deal with out of city unhoused individuals that are coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is true that we have a portion of unhoused individuals that are quote unquote repeat customers. Typically people go to areas that they're familiar with. And I don't have specific numbers to what that means for us here in the city of Milpitas, but it is true that that people go where they feel comfortable and familiar.
Thank you very much, Chief. So because many people know I tend to abstain when I don't have all the information at hand, this policy, personally, there's another slide I wanted more. Thank you so much, Chief. I wanted more clarification on that I feel is extremely perturbing. There is a slide here where it said something where the council could also dictate areas. Could you bring that back, please? No, that one wasn't it. There was another slide where I believe the mayor highlighted that it needs to come back through council. There it is. So any location the council deems necessary as a result of an ongoing threat to public safety. This statement is extremely perturbing for one reason. We are not experts in public safety. I'm an expert, a professional certified in public safety, but I wouldn't even consider myself an expert. I have learned so much in the last 4 years just through some experiences that I have had, feeling that I know enough, and then I present it and I learn more. So the council is not an expert in public safety. So who gives us a certification to deem if something is to the point where someone could get arrested or prohibited from somewhere? If anything, I feel an expert of having the pulse of the community and their concerns. Absolutely. I mean, I could say this dais is a threat to public safety. And if we had the majority, that would move. This bullet right here is something I am not okay with, because we are not experts in public safety. There is a lot of certification and training that goes into law enforcement, especially law enforcement officers. And I would not feel comfortable saying that I am an expert in all those hundreds and hundreds of pages of law. So this part itself, I could not agree with this point. The rest is just, it's not enough. It doesn't have the teeth we need to enforce, to come to the goal. It's not goal oriented. And unfortunately, it criminalizes people. I am not certified to criminalize people. That's not the role that I wanted to take in my day profession, and it's definitely not the role that I wanted to take as a council member. I do not have the certification or the training to criminalize people. That is what this policy, without clear indicators of what the goal is and how we're going to get there, because guess what? The problem is still going to happen even if this passes. So for me, I cannot even move one way or the other, because I feel there's so much information and that there's so much research that's missing. The district attorney's office is missing. Santa Clara County is missing. If anything, I would ask this council, let's unite. Let's have a conversation with the county. Our unhoused population here is so minimal compared to other regions that we could actually come up with a really good plan if we all work together and make sure that the holes in these systems do what they're intended to do. Mayor, I don't really agree with you all the time, but I will agree with the statement that I saw on your Facebook page earlier. Let's talk to the county. Let's figure out what is really happening with these systems that unfortunately are not, they're victimizing the same victims of the system, which are unhoused. I'd rather spend our energy, our resources on that than trying to pass a policy that is just not going, that it comes out really short to the objective, which is public safety. And public safety is my #1 priority. Thank you very much, Mayor, for the time. I really appreciate my colleagues for giving me the time to walk this through my head as I am thinking it. And I definitely want to thank staff for your kind consideration and for your responses. Please know, I know how difficult that is, but I really do appreciate it. So at this time, I am going to abstain from this. Thank you.
Thank you. We want to allow others the time to speak as well. So thank you for concluding your remarks, Councilmember Dominguez. I try to keep my own remarks my own, but I've been hearing some of your comments about the council not being public safety or law enforcement experts. But there's a variety of subjects that we lead the city on in terms of policy direction. Public safety is one of them. We do have a police department here in our city with a great police chief, assistant chief, captains, lieutenants, sergeants, and we have our police leadership here at these meetings so that we can get some type of confirmation on what is public safety in various cases. So as our council sits here, and if one person on the council ponders what public safety is, that's why we go straight to the 4 stars on the collar. Likewise, or similarly, if we have a public safety question in regards to fire, we go to one of the best experts in fire, which is the fire chief. Economic development is another subject. We go to our director of economic development. If we have legal questions, we go to our legal expert, the city attorney. In terms of our city's public management or policy projects, really all of the above, we go to our city manager. If we have a question about finance, we go to our director of finance, because none of us here are experts in these fields. And so we have millions of dollars invested into our police department. Every department has a dollar sign invested to them. And that's how we determine things like public safety. Now, I don't claim to know everything, but I rely on my experiences for education, which I don't need to really get into. So I want to bring the discussion around the bend. What we're looking into tonight is not a phony policy with no teeth. I think I heard that's what it was. It's actually a policy that many other cities have and that have been effective. I think there's a comment about the timing of this. The timing is now. The issues are now. What this agenda item really does is puts us on the corner of Escuela and Washington, outside of Pomeroy, on the sidewalk, on the public right of way. It puts us on the corner of Escuela and Jacqueline. It puts us on the corner of Yellowstone and Sequoia, outside of Rancho Middle School. This agenda item puts us on Main Street, outside of the Rainbow Child Development Center. This agenda item puts us outside the library, and it puts us on top of the Calaveras Bridge, right outside of our city hall, where there is only one sidewalk that pedestrians can take to cross the bridge. And the public right of way must be maintained for seniors, the disabled, children and families, whomever. And that's where we are tonight with this agenda item. It's very practical. There's not much theory to it. You look at the geography of our town, there's a railroad and railroad tracks that pass through our town. There are overpasses. Those are public rights of way. If those public rights of way are obstructed, it becomes a public safety risk. And so there's 1,000 ways you can look at this policy. I look at some of our guests on Zoom. If the Navarro family has a public right of way outside of their home and it's obstructed by personal property or whatnot, they are unable to walk or exit or enter their home. And I can continue listing all the places that this will create better public safety, but I will save everybody the trouble. Next up, you have Councilor Fan.
Yes, thank you. I will try to be brief and objective as I can be. I think when the policy was initially presented, although I was critical of the policy and had some concerns, I was more receptive because I saw it as more of a an enforcement issues that we were working to mitigate, and more of a compliance issue. However, as the discussion proceeded, when we talk about prosecution, when we talk about going through the entire criminal justice process, it seems to be more extreme than that. And so my concern now is that the policy, instead of working to actually address the public health, public safety, the infrastructure concerns with the neighborhoods, it's now becoming an issue of criminalizing homelessness. And that's not what I think the conversation should be about. I think that there are a lot of things that need to be reformed. I think the policy can be reformed. And I hope that it has the opportunity to go through these reforms with council feedback into consideration. However, the more systemic issues are probably too complicated to solve overnight, or even over a year, for that matter. Whether or not it's through our city attorney's office or the district attorney's office, at the end of the day, I think the result becomes the same unless we actually do something to address the core issue, which is getting folks the resources and the housing that they need. At its root, homelessness is a housing issue. And unless we actually have that conversation, when we focus on everything else, that's a very complicated process that we have very little control over. In the meantime, though, I do have concerns about sending our officers to enforce this. I have concerns for their safety. I have concerns about the potential impact to the service that we can provide, because dispatch is stretched thin right now with the increased calls for service. We are still trying to recruit officers to join the team, and the more resources that we spend to enforce these smaller infractions, these nonviolent offenses, the less capacity that we actually have for our cops to be cops, for our officers to dedicate their time to address and mitigate and deter the serious crimes, the violent crimes, the burglaries, the trafficking. And so it's a question, I think, of where are our priorities going to be? Who is going to enforce it? And even if it's not the police department, then would it be code enforcement? Are we comfortable sending our code enforcement officers out there to do this kind of work. Perhaps I
Just
don't
do a
know.
point of information. Let's answer Councilmember Fan's question.
Sure, thank you.
Is building code, is that? I don't believe that's appropriate. Maybe city manager or city attorney, whoever has the answer.
The ordinance itself with regard to the prohibitions would be the prohibitions listed in section 10-9-1.0 would all be enforced by the police department. Now, the police department, upon enforcing some of them, may find that there was a declared public nuisance and that property set forth in the right of way ended up being a public nuisance and needed to be removed. If that was the case, then police would work with the Public Works Department. I doubt they'd work with code enforcement, but they'd work with Public Works Department and the Public Works contractor to remove the property, just sort of as they do now.
So are we going to budget more funding for that kind of enforcement? Perhaps this is an administrative question, because I just don't see how we're going to do it right now with, all of the calls for service and, the changing public safety demands.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like 1000 Hillview, just all of our resources being drawn out in a certain direction, 1000 Hillview. But one thing I can share with you, Councilmember Fan, is our city has declared a public nuisance in the past. And so it's a procedure that has occurred time and time again. And so this is not necessarily a new practice. I think furthermore, perhaps the police department can share and the chief can share previous instances where there was private property that was stored. And these are steps in any case that you're presenting that will be successfully carried out by our city in the event.
Sure. No, I hear your point. I've already made my remarks. I'm good on the information. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And, I do want to follow up on Councilmember Fan because I really love to listen to each of my colleagues. One of the pieces of discussion Councilmember Fan brought up for our public and whatnot is resources. We, I think, discussed earlier on this agenda item that per usual sort of process in these events where there's private property in the public right of way, which is something that we must think of tonight, right of way. We do send a team out there, and part of tonight's agenda item, we should have a piece that says the heat team or social services will go out there as well. And I think we brought that up earlier in the presentation. We understand and recognize that these are the vulnerable folks in our community. I, at a time, spent time with these vulnerable folks, but I don't need to go into my past work history. It's not important like that, but we recognize these are folks that need every piece of help they can get. And we're going to deliver every piece of help we can give. It's just, these are the cases where, due to public safety, number one, these steps need to be taken. There are instances where there was a public right of way with private property on it, which led to innocent people getting hurt. And perhaps we can send you that information. I know I did a little more research than you on this, so perhaps we can do better with that going forward for you. But resources will be given. You mentioned, Councilmember Fan, the response by public works or non-law enforcement officers. We had a case recently. There's a public nuisance in Milpitas. It was actually at a residential private property. There's a nuisance on the property. Went through the proper process. The city staff went out there and they were accompanied by a police officer for public safety or any safety. And so the history of our city shows that for 68 years, our city staff has gone out there to do the public service and good. And our Milpitas Police Department has always been there in every case, then, now, and forever, to protect our city's staff. And then in the last part before I go to Councilmember Chua is, I kind of already talked about this, but you talked about our resources being stretched, and it is stretched, mostly at 1000 Hillview. So sometimes things work out the way they do, and it's important for us to do what's best for the public safety of our community, our small businesses. Folks really want to talk about Main Street, revitalizing Main Street, and we simply can't have these pop-ups and events and recreating spaces, all these things I hear, if the driveways and the entrances to our small businesses are blocked because someone has their private property on the public right of way. Next up, Councilmember Chua.
Thank you, Mayor Tran. When I first read the agenda tonight, I was really surprised that we do not have an ordinance on use of right of way in public property. And the city has been around for 68, 70 years, close to 70 years. And we don't have an ordinance. We don't even have a policy. We're talking about it tonight. And it's common sense. I mean, when it impedes ADA passage, 10 feet from a driveway or a loading dock, 5 feet of a building entrance, exit, emergency egress, pathway, or corridor, 5 feet from a fire hydrant. I mean, these are just common sense things that we don't have. And I'm sitting here as a first-time council member thinking or deciding on an ordinance that should have been there a long time ago. So to me, if it's resident safety, it must be a priority. Obviously, the previous council didn't see this a priority. So I have a one question to police chief and one question to city attorney. Looking at this draft, the ordinance, is it enforceable? Yes, please.
So I'll go first. I do believe it's enforceable. And just to add to the discussion, because I think in full disclosure, it's important for council to know everything when they make decisions. To date, for this year, we've had 1,792 calls for service involving unhoused individuals. And I don't see this policy strictly about unhoused. It's about property and public rights of way. But it sounds like the discussion is a little more focused on unhoused. And so that's why I'm bringing up these numbers. And for January alone, using that as the example, we had 190 calls involving unhoused people that are Milpitas unhoused as well as out of Milpitas unhoused. So unhoused people that come to Milpitas for different purposes. Out of that 190 calls for service, 50 resulted in police reports. That tells me, without going case by case, that there was something more to it than just somebody that was causing a disturbance or something like that. 124 of those were logged out, meaning that no enforcement action was taken. And 16 of those for the month of January, it was just a closed out event. And so as you are having your discussion, I have to think about how might a policy like this impact those remaining 140 calls for service? I don't know. I don't know the answer. But what I could say is that I think that the men and women of the Milpitas Police Department police with compassion. And I do think that any enforcement of this section would have to come from that standpoint. Currently, we handle unhoused issues on a regular basis, clearly 1,792 of them. And each one of those, we will make referrals to the heat team. When the city entered that agreement with the county, that's what our commitment was.
Right.
And so we try to take the least aggressive approach. I think we highlighted that last year and a little bit of this year in dealing with probably one of our larger encampments that we had to deal with. And so you all have a tough decision, but I think that it's important to know all the information as you navigate through that decision that you have to make.
Thank you, Chief. That's very informative. And I have one question to the city attorney. As it is written tonight, this ordinance, is it defensible?
As the ordinance is written, it certainly, I believe, conforms with Martin v. Boise and its progeny. It's enforceable as a matter of law. I think Councilmember Dominguez and Councilmember Fan are not wrong. This ordinance certainly wouldn't change the course of homelessness through the state of California. If California is going to solve its homeless problems, it's going to build its way out of homelessness. What this ordinance is designed to do is to give officers a tool to gain compliance of otherwise incompliant individuals.
Exactly. That's
Do a
what we're
point of
addressing
information,
tonight.
point of information as well for Councilor Chua, if I may. We will not be the first city with this sort of policy. City attorney, perhaps you can share other municipalities that are implementing this policy and have been practicing it.
Well, I mean, obviously Boise, since Martin v. Boise took place in Boise.
I mean, our ordinance for tonight.
So there's similarities with both Los Angeles and San Francisco, similarities with San Diego, similarities with some of the things that they're doing in Orange County. We sort of looked statewide as to what we thought best practices were being and incorporated from those places.
Thank you so much. And I do agree with other council members that it's a big, complicated thing, but we're not addressing homelessness in the city. We're addressing resident safety. And this ordinance will do that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Attorney Multilipasi. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Chua. And right before here, we go to the Vice Mayor. Yeah, we are addressing public safety. It's nice, or appropriate more so to express that this is not to solve homelessness. This is to ensure public safety, like Councilmember Chua said, for our residents, but also importantly as well, our small businesses, the ones that rely on their daily work to support their families. Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been listening to everyone's comments, and I've been getting a lot of complaints from residents, a lot of abandoned shopping carts in front of their driveways, which is impeding their way to get out. And it's just, that's, to me, public safety is number one. And I know that we use some of our community resource officers when they do, call in. I think this ordinance is really about protecting the right of way of the citizens of Milpitas. And I just feel that it's needed. And as Councilmember Chua had mentioned, we didn't really have an ordinance before. So this is an opportunity for an ordinance to come into play. The other thing is, we have to go hand in hand, even though this ordinance, we still have to find solutions for our unhoused. I've been proposing a navigation center for the longest time.
You got the check right here.
So this to me, this goes hand in hand. This is just one little piece of solving some of the issues, because we have to protect the people's right of ways, the public right of ways. And this ordinance, I feel, will do the trick, or will not do the trick, but will at least help that. And at the same time, we also help to find solutions for our unhoused, because they all have different needs. And I'm really glad that Assemblymember Lee had gave us, our city, some funding to maybe find some of those solutions. So I am in support of this use of right of way, this municipal code, or this ordinance.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Montano. And I always like to take best practices from other cities and implement them here. I think that's a dynamic of what we have tonight. We already took public comment. Let's go to the city attorney. Do you need my motion before your reading, or can you read first?
I can certainly read the title of the ordinance. And as I get back to it, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas, adding Chapter 9, Use of Right-of-Way and Public Property, to Title 10, Streets and Sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code, and adding Section 10-10-1.03 to Chapter 10, Structures or Objects on Sidewalks or Public Ways, to Title 10, Streets and Sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code.
Thank you very much. I'll make a motion to waive the reading following the city attorney's reading aloud of the title there. I'll go ahead and make a motion to waive the reading beyond the title and introduce an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Milpitas, adding Chapter 9, Use of Rights of Way and Public Property, to Title X, Streets and Sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code, and adding Section 10-10-1.03 to Chapter 10, Structures or Objects on Sidewalks or Public Ways, to Title 10, Streets and Sidewalks of the Milpitas Municipal Code. That's my motion. Need a second. We have a second from Councilmember Chua, and we'll go to the vote. Let's use our voting system as well. Okay. Press this button here. You can get your device, please. There is an abstain function for those that might need it. And then we're going to show hands. We got a motion from myself, a second from Councilmember Evelyn Chua. And once we get the results in here. See what we got. Okay, and we're gonna do the show of hands. Let's go with the first we'll go with the screen here. All right, all votes received. Before we go to the hands, let's go with the digital. Okay, do the hands first. Okay, if it's a yes, hands up. If it's a no, okay, hands down. If it's a no, hands up. Okay, there it is right there. Thank you. Hands down, please. And then if you're going to abstain, abstention, hands up. Okay, abstentions, hands down. All right, we'll go to the screen. And for our folks at home. Oh, okay, let's vote again on digitally. Yeah. For the folks at home, you want to get that on your screen. folks are watching on video at home. Okay. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The vote has concluded. Item number 17 has been approved for tonight and is moving forward. Okay, great. Item number 18. Thank you, Chief. Review the list of agenda item requests from individual council members and provide direction to staff through the prioritization process on groups 1 items. Provide additional clarification to staff, if any, on group 2 items, and direct staff to return with a draft city council policy titled City Council Requests Prioritization Policy, formalizing the process. And let's see, we have our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Ashwini Kantak, Assistant City Manager, joined by Walter Rossman, Deputy City Manager, as well as several department heads for this item. So similar to our last prioritization discussion in May, we do not have slides for each item within the presentation, but we'll be prepared to bring up any documents with additional details on any group 1 item you may want to discuss. Next slide, please. So as you're well aware, this process of prioritization began in January of 2021 when council provided direction to staff to bring forward individual council agenda item requests on a quarterly basis for council consideration. So far, we've had 4 prioritization sessions, and through this process, City Council has reviewed and provided direction on 253 council agenda item requests. And if we could go to the next slide, please. So to quickly summarize what you're looking at today, we have a total of 57 items that are categorized into 4 groups. Group 1 is items that have not been initiated and will require more than 4 hours of staff time and may require additional funding or resources, and there's 8 of those. Group 2 is items that are not initiated but require less than 4 hours of staff work. There's 3 of those. And that doesn't really require any prioritization, but happy to receive input from council on that. Group 3 is items that are currently already underway or in our work plan. And then 4 is items that have been completed, postponed indefinitely, or withdrawn. There's 22 items in group 4. And these are the ones that were done after March 15. And then group 1 items based on previous council input have been further categorized into 3 subgroups: ordinances and policies, projects and programs, and then miscellaneous items. And you have detailed information for the group 1 items, which includes the anticipated work, effort, required resources and funding, etc. Of the 8 group 1 items, we have 6 items that have an estimated cost ranging from about 800,000 to 2.7 million and requiring staff hours of anywhere between 180 to 2,080 hours. And then 2 items have not yet been costed out. Well, we can come forward with estimated costs and resource needs based on council direction. Next slide, please. And so these are at a glance the group 1 items that council will be considering today. And then they include, so under ordinances and policies, it's a policy to regulate automated equipment that would reduce jobs, an ordinance or policy to reduce thefts and increase security in commercial retail parking areas, and a policy for locking mechanisms on shopping carts for large commercial businesses. Under projects and programs, we have a Better Cities for Pets certification, use of roundabouts for traffic calming, as well as a Vision Zero action plan. And then in the miscellaneous group, there's 2 items. One is establishing a fund for real estate acquisitions and a memorial plaque to honor a young skateboarder that passed away. Next slide, please. And so in your agenda packet, again, this is similar to what you've done before. So in your agenda packet, you have a list of group 1 items along with the write-ups. We'll be using the electronic voting process for group 1 items only. And after staff presentation and council discussion, you'll be able to vote for your top 4 items. You'll be using the same app that our IT staff developed, and you should each have your individual voting links. You can click on the plus sign to pick your top 4 items from the 8 items in group 1. And if you change your mind, you can simply just use the recycle bin icon and deselect an item and add another one. Once you pick 4, you will not be able to pick any additional items. And of course, IT Director Nam is available to assist in case you need help with the voting. The voting results for each member will be displayed for the public. Any items receiving 3 or more votes will automatically be considered approved and move to the final list. And if the number of these items is 4 or more, right from the first round, then the prioritization process will be deemed complete. If the total number of prioritized items is less than 4, we'll go to round 2, use the same process as round 1 for electronic voting. And then after round 2, if the number of items is still less than 4, all remaining items which received at least 1 vote will be prioritized through additional rounds. And items with 0 votes will be eliminated after round 2. And then just like previous prioritization efforts, items that do not advance through this prioritization process will be removed from the active list. Of course, they could always be resubmitted through announcements for the next prioritization, which we anticipate bringing to you in December of 2022. Next slide, please. And I covered this briefly under so fiscal impact, again, 6 group 1 items that we have estimated costs for between 800,000 and 2.7 million, with staffing hours ranging again from 180 to 2,080, which equals about 1.2 FTEs. And then for 2 remaining items, we would bring them back based on your feedback. And we have also, based on council direction so far, any approved items requiring funding will return to council for discussion as part of the annual budget process, so which begins January of 2023 for the FY 23-24 budget session. And then, as you know, we've received iterative feedback on this process. And so staff recommends bringing forward draft council policy titled City Council Request Prioritization Policy for your consideration. This will allow us to document the current process and seek any additional council input and recommendations to improve the process. Next slide, please. And so actually, next slide, sorry, one more. Yeah, so this is the recommendation. And so it's really, again, you're prioritizing the 8 group 1 items, providing any additional input to staff on group 2 items, and then directing staff to return with a draft council policy for consideration later this year. With that, I think we'll take any questions you may have. If you need additional information on any item, staff is available to provide that before you go to the voting process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our Assistant City Manager here in the City of Milpitas, Ashwini Kantak. Thank you so much. Yeah, just looking forward to our council making some decisions tonight. I guess we'll, I kind of want to, are we going to bring up the list now? Kind of for the public to participate as we move along, right?
Sure, we could do that, Mayor. If you want to just bring the IT, can we bring the list forward or should we bring the PDF?
Just a glance at the list. That way members of the chamber here tonight,
Sure.
They can kind of see what we're going to be voting on. I just want to make sure we get public comment. Let's just go down the line items. We'll put in our vote and whatnot as a council, and then at the end of that, we can get public comment. I just want to hear from folks if certain items mean something of significance. I do want to take the comment, but we'll take the comment later. Let's go ahead now with the prioritization.
So Mayor, just want to confirm you want to move into the voting process? Or?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll set that up right now. Assistant City Manager. We'll go to the Vice Mayor, Carmen Montano.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a question, Ashwini. So is group one, items 1 through 23?
No, just 8 items, Vice Mayor Montano.
Oh, just the 8 items, or the ones that are on the screen right here?
Yeah, so I don't know this, if the screen is large enough. On my screen, it's a little small. There's 8 items. If we can kind of scroll
Yeah.
down. Thank you.
Yeah, if you can move.
And those are the ones, Vice Mayor, that require more than
Okay.
4 hours of.
Okay, so we're voting on these 8 items, prioritizing rather.
Yes.
Okay,
And you pick the top 4, similar to kind of the percentages we've been using before. So about 50%.
okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, great. Members of the public, in person or virtually, your agenda on the City of Milpitas website, or I'm not sure if we have the agenda report here for the members of the audience, but on the screen behind me, you can see some of the items. Let's just go ahead and start the voting process, and then we'll take public comment. I think that'll suffice.
Mayor, round 1 is currently open and ready for voting. There are 8 items to be voted on.
Okay. Am I looking at what am I looking at?
Mayor, you should have a link and maybe,
Oh, there's an email link.
yes, and maybe Director Nam can come and assist.
You're right. Okay. Thank you so much for your help. I'm like so lost. It's in our email. Is that what it is? Yeah, we're gonna get everybody set up. In the email, we received an email with the link. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay. And who's the email from?
I can't really, so it should be,
I'm looking for it. Oh. So many emails. Let's see here. Yes, thank you, Daniel. Our director of IT, Daniel Nim. Okay, there it is. All right, folks at home, if you're watching or if you're here in the chamber, we got this link we're opening up on our phone, then we're going to go to the vote. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, I hit 4. Mm-hmm. Okay, submit. Okay. I've always been a little slow with some of these tests. I'm usually the last person. But it's all about the results.
All votes have been received. The results are in. Mayor Tran, let me display this on the screen.
Thank you very much. Our city clerk, Suzanne Guzetta.
You can stop sharing the PDF. Thank you.
And here are the results. Mayor Tran selected item 3, policy for locking mechanisms on shopping carts. Item 4, better cities for pets. Item 6, prepare vision 0. Item 7, establish a fund for real estate acquisitions. Vice Mayor Montano selected item 2, explore an ordinance or policy to reduce thefts and increase security in commercial retail parking areas. Item 3, explore the policy for locking mechanisms on shopping carts. Item 7, establish a fund for real estate acquisitions. Item 8, memorial plaque in honor of youth skateboarders. Councilmember Fan selected item 1, consider policies to regulate automated equipment that would reduce jobs. Item 5, explore the use of roundabouts as a traffic calming mechanism. Item 6, prepare a Vision 0 action plan. And item 7, establish a fund for real estate acquisitions. Councilmember Dominguez selected item 1, consider policies to regulate automated equipment that would reduce jobs. Item 2, or an ordinance or policy to reduce thefts and increase security in the commercial retail parking areas. Item 5, explore the use of roundabouts as a traffic calming mechanism. And item 6, prepare Vision 0 action plan. Councilmember Chua selected item 2, explore an ordinance or policy to reduce thefts and increase security in commercial retail parking areas. Item 3, explore the policy for locking mechanisms on shopping carts for large commercial businesses. Item 4, apply for the Better Cities for Pets certification. And item 8, memorial plaque in honor of youth skateboarder that passed away. And here are the results. We have received 4 items that have received at least 3 votes. Item 2, explored an ordinance or policy to reduce thefts and increase security in the commercial retail parking areas. Item 3, explore the policy for locking mechanisms on shopping carts for large commercial businesses. Item 6, prepare Vision 0 action plan. And item 7, establish a fund for real estate acquisitions.
Thank you very much, City Clerk. I'd like to make an amendment to my vote. One of my votes is for the pets program. I'd like to take that vote and put it into the skateboarder item. And that should get that skateboard item to 3. But please correct me if I'm wrong, because the city clerk is usually right. Can I do that? Thank you. I ran out of votes. Oh. You want to go to the email again? This is the link. That's fine. Okay, I don't think the clerk has the record. Suzanne, please, can you change my vote for the pets program, even though I love pets so much, and move that one over to the skateboard? Okay, please.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And for the skateboard item, I think that would now move that item to have 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I ran out of votes, but as long as I use my allotted votes, I'll be happy. Thank you so much. Okay, Ashwini, please.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to check in with the city clerk. Does that result in 5 items?
That does result in 5 items.
Yeah, with at least 3 votes, right?
Correct.
So that's 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much. Thank you. Skateboard item is very important to our community. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes.
Okay, we'll take public comment for item number 18. Public comment on any of these items. Mr. Montemayor, come on up.
Voltaire, Montemayor, Milpitas. Yeah, great process. It's fairly done or being conducted. My only I think of if suddenly there's a very, very important and it's urgency, can it shoot up and match it to group 1 or 2? I think that's possible, right? It's suddenly very, very important. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, any further public comment in the chamber? Looking, going once, going twice, to the left, to the right, going once, going twice, gone. I'll go to the virtual guest here. Any virtual raised hands? We have one. Barbara Navarro.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I don't have the 8 memorized, but I'd like the one that mentioned the safety and the parking lots. I think that's an important one for visitors that are coming to use our facilities and our commercial areas and getting their cars ripped off. That's not a good thing for our city. So I hope that you pass that one.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you very much. I unfortunately, kind of have seen the issue, which is much more complex. Even one of our more popular shopping centers here in town, they have declined to add surveillance cameras, and that's made it nearly impossible for our police department to conduct their investigation. And so we'll continue to work with our private property owners to put in the best practices that are proven, but we're going to address that issue as we are currently. And so we won't rest until we can make all the improvements we can. Thank you for your comment. Okay, that's it for public comment for item number 18. I want to thank everybody. We'll go to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a clarifying question for Ashwini. Now, you had mentioned earlier that the ones that the items that we have for the last couple of years that have requested, you said that they are removed from the active list. Is there a way that we can still get a list of those ones that we requested? I mean, do they just disappear and we don't see them anymore? Are they kept in a file somewhere?
Yes, we maintain that. So happy to share that, Vice Mayor.
Yeah.
But in your packet, the ones that show up under that group 4 is only the one since the last prioritization date. So, but we do maintain a list of items that basically were either withdrawn or didn't get voted on.
Okay, but they're still there. So when we need to refer back to them,
yeah,
we can have access to them, right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Very good. Very good. Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Carmen Montano. And I see no further requests for comment. And we've followed the recommendations. 1, review, 2, provide additional input, and 3, direct staff. And thank you to our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak. Okay. Fantastic. Not sure if you're...
I'm on for the next item, whatever you're doing.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure All right. Item number 19, and then we have a couple more from the consent, folks. Item number 19, consider nomination of a member of the City Council to Santa Clara County Unhoused Task Force for appointment by the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors. And still with us, our Assistant City Manager, Ashwini Kantak, here during our agenda items.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. So I do have a few slides, but if, happy to just go directly to council discussion if the mayor already has a nominee in mind.
Yeah, thank you. We'll go to public comment here. Any public comment for item number 19, public comment here in the chamber, or just appointing somebody to the county. I do have somebody in mind. Okay, no public comments requests in the chamber for item number 19. And so we'll go to the virtual chamber. Any virtual raised hands for item number 19? It's more of a procedural item. I see no virtual raised hands. Back to the dais here. This is a very appreciated county unhoused task force. I know in the past our city has had 2 representatives on this county task force, if my memory serves me well. I don't remember the appointment process, but here we are tonight with the appointment process, which is fine and dandy. I think currently we have Councilmember Dominguez on this, but the county is requesting for 2 persons, and please correct me if I'm wrong. And the person I want to nominate for this county unhoused task force is actually, drum roll, Councilmember Evelyn Chua. I wanna nominate you. I think that you can represent our city very well on this task force. It's, I think it's important, and I think you'd serve our city very well. So if you'll accept my nomination. Okay.
I accept, Mayor, and thank you for the recommendation. Looking forward of working with Councilmember Dominguez on this task force.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And you have experience, albeit on a different task force. And so with those things, I really appreciate it. And maybe going forward with our homelessness task force here in the city, we can have more discussions on how we can really balance out the task force from the county and the city. Perhaps there's some opportunity. Okay, so I'll move to nominate Councilmember Evelyn Chua to the Santa Clara County Unhoused Task Force. And we have a second from Councilmember Fan. Thank you so much. And we got public comment. And so we will go to the vote. Motion by myself, second from Councilmember Fan. And we'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself is an aye. Thank you very much. That's item number 19. Moving on to item number 12. Item number 12 and then 13. Chronological. Item number 12. Approve and authorize the city manager to execute the 5-year general service agreement with Aramark Uniform Services for the citywide uniform, mat, and linen services for the not to exceed amount of $240,916.30. We do have our purchasing agent, one of the legends here in this building, City Hall, Chris Schroeder. Chris Schroeder, where are you at? Oh, I miss you. I haven't seen you in a while, Mr. Schroeder. And we'll go to Vice Mayor Montano. I know you pulled the item. And we have our Director of Finance, Lauren Lyons. Well, I see you Zoom. You teleported in here. There you are. Welcome. Okay. I think Director Lai may take her question if we don't see our purchaser.
Of course.
Vice Mayor Montano.
Thank you. I just had a question on item 13, which is
12 is 12.
Oh, sorry. Yes, C12. So approve the and authorize the city manager to execute the 5-year general services agreement with Aramark uniform service for citywide uniform. So my question was, do they use biodegradable solutions when they as part of the
Bio-friendly
process?
products,
Yeah.
chemicals.
Biodegradable products.
Yeah, that's a good question, actually.
Give me a minute. I've got the buyer on the other side. So he's typing.
Okay, we're making the connection here.
Honest answer at this time, unknown on that. We
Okay.
can definitely research and get back to you.
We can do that. Are they trying to connect? Because I can go to item number 13 and get back to you. Or if you think we can perhaps move the item to the next meeting to gather more information.
I am trying to connect.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll pause item number 12 there. If we can, I want to go to item number 13. I'll go ahead and do that. Let's go to item number 13 now, since we're waiting for that answer to the question. So item number 13, approve and authorize the city manager to execute amendment number 2 to the professional services agreement with We Hope for mobile shower, laundry, and case management services through January 15th, 2023 for the total contract amount not to exceed $86,552. And that item was pulled by a member of our audience. Come on up, sir. Did you have no questions? Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty solid item. And so any other public comment for item number 13? Okay. And we'll go to the virtual.
I am here. I'm trying to connect.
Mr. Schroeder, if you can mute your, yeah. Although I love your voice. I do love your voice, but all right. Well, let's go. I don't see any virtual raised hands. Let me triple check. Okay, no virtual raised hands. Okay, item 13 is good to go. We went for public comment and such. Our community member is okay at this point. So we got the move to, we got a motion to approve item number 13. We have a second from Councilor Dominguez. Let's go to the vote. All in favor to approve item number 13. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
That's aye. Councilmember Fan.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Montano, need your microphone.
Aye.
That's an aye. Myself is an aye. The motion is carried. Item number 13 is approved. Very good. Thank you, everybody. And then just one more item for tonight. Item number 12, and hopefully we're getting close to connecting to the person. Maybe the person we're trying to reach is in a power outage. You never know tonight. You never know tonight, but we are reaching out, folks. Item number 12, if you're watching at home or if you need some buddy to share with you here in the chamber, item number 12, what are we waiting on? It's to approve and authorize the city manager to execute the 5-year general service agreement with the Aramark Uniform Service for a citywide uniform mat and linen services for the amount not to exceed of $240,916.30. We are getting close. I think folks can see Mr. Schroeder here above me.
Yes, hello.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm
Yes.
doing well, thank you. The answer to your question is not something I have at my fingertips. Zachary Devine, our senior buyer, worked on this project. If Zachary is still with us, he might be able to answer that question this evening. I don't know.
Well, let's go to the vice mayor here.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think it's really important that if our vendors, they should start using these biodegradable products. And, because we need to be concerned about the environment.
Yeah,
So
climate
that's
change,
why I
everything.
wanted to find out if they're doing that.
Can, if I may add to you, Vice Mayor,
Sure.
is there a time sensitivity, Mr. Schroeder, in terms of purchasing, or can we perhaps reach out to the vendor to see what type of environmentally friendly products they use?
We could reach out to the vendor. The current contract doesn't expire until November.
Oh, okay, good. And in the interim, I think we, the council, should create a resolution that any of our vendors should start using these biodegradable products.
Yeah, we can put that a resolution for a future agenda.
Yeah.
Well, let's finish this item first.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
maybe move this for the next,
Yeah, okay.
next,
Motion to postpone item 12 to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. I do want to check in with the Director of Finance, Lauren Lai. are you?
Yeah,
I'm
so
hesitant.
we did reach out. We do know that the plant uses reclaimed water and Ecolab is the detergent provider. We're not certain about the bio-friendly products. This was an RFP process, so we're happy to bring back confirmation at the next meeting. But if we have to do another solicitation, it may compromise the expiration date. So I just wanted to be transparent about that process.
100%. Thank you. No, we get it. We get it. Let's bring it back though. And but there was an RFP process. We get it, but let's take a moment. I think we have a little bit of time to just go over it, but there was an RFP process and we know how that works. So valid points. But let's postpone item number 12 to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. We'll put this item number 12 on the consent calendar for the next regularly scheduled city council meeting. Perhaps Mr. Schroeder or Director Lai can reach out to the vice mayor with some of the information requested. And if it's good, we can put it on consent for the next meeting. But the RFP thing, yeah, watch out. We don't want that. We don't want to disrupt that. So, okay. Thank you for accommodating our request, city staff. And then, so why don't you go ahead, Vice Mayor, make a motion. Motion to postpone item number 12. Okay.
I make a motion to postpone item number 12.
Okay, to the next regular city council meeting. I'll second that. We'll go to the vote. Councilmember Chua.
Aye.
Councilmember Dominguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Fan. Aye. Vice Mayor Montano.
Aye.
And myself as an aye. Item number 12 has been postponed. Vice Mayor, you wanted to feature agenda item resolution for vendors who use products to investigate. Yeah, do you just want to bring it up at the next meeting, or just take a note next meeting during the future agenda items? We can bring that up. So, okay, I think we got everything tonight. 12 and 13. Thank you to members of the public for being here. You provide us a sense of normalcy as we get further away from the pandemic, or you just had a power outage at your house and you came here for some light. But either way, we're happy you're here. All right. We got some good work done tonight. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.